Ever watched a movie that bombed so hard studios buried it, only to discover years later it was way ahead of its time? The 1990s were packed with ambitious sci-fi that got crushed by blockbusters, dismissed by critics, and somehow became the most influential cult classics of the decade.
If you're still interested, let me know.
Today we're counting down 10 sci-fi disasters of the 90s that became masterpieces. Let's dive in.
No, it's a robot! The robot, it's 100 feet high!
10. The Iron Giant, 1999. Brad Bird directed animated masterpiece that Warner Brothers completely failed to market. They spent $70 million creating beautiful hand-drawn animation about a boy befriending a giant robot from space during the Cold War. Then they released it against other blockbusters with zero promotion, no merchandising, and watched it bomb with only $31 million domestic return.
That was close. You can't go running around like that, okay?
The film is perfect. The animation is gorgeous. The story about choosing who you become instead of accepting programming is timeless. The Superman homage ending destroys audiences emotionally every single time. Vin Diesel voices the giant with childlike wonder. Jennifer Aniston and Harry Connick Jr. ground the human story. Bird created instant classic that nobody saw in theaters. Critical acclaim meant nothing without audience. Home video and cable television saved it from complete obscurity. Repeated broadcasts introduced new generations to the film Warner Brothers abandoned. Now it's recognized as one of the greatest animated films ever made and definitive Cold War allegory for children that works for adults. The Iron Giant is the most heartbreaking bomb on this list because it's genuinely perfect filmmaking that deserved massive success and got corporate negligence instead. Warner Brothers learned nothing and continued mishandling animated films for decades. Next, we have Kathryn Bigelow's cyberpunk thriller that predicted virtual reality black markets and police brutality, but got buried by millennium paranoia. 9. Strange Days, 1995. Kathryn Bigelow directed cyberpunk thriller produced and co-written by James Cameron about virtual reality recordings called Squid that let people experience others' memories. Ralph Fiennes plays dealer in illegal recordings navigating Los Angeles on the eve of the millennium. Angela Bassett plays his bodyguard trying to save him from conspiracy involving police brutality cover-up. The budget was $42 million. It returned $8 million, catastrophic flop. The millennium setting dated it immediately. Y2K paranoia felt silly months after release when nothing happened, but the themes about virtual reality addiction, police violence against minorities, and surveillance technology were prescient. The opening POV robbery sequence is technical masterpiece showing what Squid recordings look like. Bigelow's action direction is kinetic and brutal. The film explores how technology allows people to escape reality through others' experiences. The black market for violent and sexual recordings predicts modern VR concerns. The police brutality plotline involving Rodney King-style beating feels more relevant now than 1995 when audiences dismissed it. Strange Days bombed because audiences weren't ready for its message. It's Bigelow's most ambitious and visionary film that got completely overshadowed by Titanic 2 years later. The cyberpunk aesthetic influenced The Matrix. The themes became more relevant with every year. It deserves rediscovery as forgotten masterpiece about technology and violence. Next, we explore Andrew Niccol's genetic discrimination thriller that was too cerebral for mainstream audiences but predicted our biotech future perfectly.
My God, what's wrong with the machine?
There's nothing wrong with the machine. It's a hot sample. You've been drinking again.
8. Gattaca, 1997. Andrew Niccol wrote and directed beautiful science fiction film about genetic discrimination in near future. Ethan Hawke plays naturally conceived man in society where genetic engineering determines your entire life. He assumes another identity to achieve his dream of space travel. Uma Thurman and Jude Law support in film about destiny versus determination. $36 million budget returned only $12 million domestically. The film is too cerebral and slow for mainstream audiences wanting action. It's thoughtful meditation on eugenics, discrimination, and what makes us human. The production design is gorgeous, retro, futuristic aesthetic mixing 1950s and far future. The score is haunting. The story is fundamentally about overcoming societal limitations through sheer will. Gattaca predicted genetic engineering ethics debates decades before CRISPR made them real.
Ow! God damn!
Jerome, I'm sorry.
Bro, are you out of practice some more?
designer babies, genetic discrimination in employment and insurance. The film asked questions we're now confronting as technology catches up to science fiction. It was too early for its warnings to resonate. Critical acclaim didn't translate to box office. Home video built devoted cult following. Now it's studied in bioethics courses and recognized as one of the smartest science fiction films of the 90s. Gattaca is underrated masterpiece that becomes more relevant as genetic technology advances. It deserved the success it never achieved. Next, we have Kevin Costner's second post-apocalyptic disaster that proved Waterworld wasn't a fluke but a pattern.
Don't. Just let me go. I don't want to be a part of your army.
7. The Postman, 1997. Kevin Costner directed himself in 3-hour post-apocalyptic epic based on David Brin's novel. A drifter finds a postal uniform and accidentally inspires hope across destroyed America by pretending to represent restored government. The $80 million budget returned only $18 million domestic. Critics destroyed it. Costner won Worst Director and Worst Actor Razzies. The film is too long, too earnest, too sincere for cynical 90s audiences still mocking Waterworld. The message about hope and rebuilding civilization through something as mundane as mail delivery couldn't overcome the bloat. The story moves slowly. The villain, played by Will Patton, is generic. The love story feels forced, but The Postman has fascinating elements buried in the excess. The idea that symbols matter even when they're lies that become truth is compelling. Tom Petty's cameo as himself leading a survivor community is delightful. The optimism about human nature rebuilding from ashes is genuine even if execution fails. The film is too earnest for modern audiences who prefer ironic detachment. Costner believed in the story and that sincerity became mockery target. Rehabilitation seems unlikely, but it's interesting failure from director who refused to compromise his vision despite everyone telling him it wouldn't work. The Postman failed spectacularly, but at least it tried something ambitious. Next, we have Paul Verhoeven's satirical masterpiece that audiences and critics completely misunderstood as straight fascist propaganda.
This isn't random or light. Someone made a mistake.
That's it.
6. Starship Troopers, 1997. Paul Verhoeven made satirical science fiction war film about fascist future where humans fight giant bugs. The $105 million budget made modest returns domestically. Critics completely missed the satire and attacked it as fascist propaganda. Audiences wanted straight action and got confused by intentionally bad acting and Nazi aesthetics. It bombed and Verhoeven's American career never recovered. The film is brilliant satire of militarism and fascism disguised as blockbuster action. The propaganda broadcasts. Would you like to know more? The recruitment ads making war look fun, the Nazi-inspired uniforms and imagery. Verhoeven made RoboCop-style commentary on American militarism, but audiences in 1997 took it at face value and missed the point entirely. The acting is intentionally wooden and performative. The beautiful people are propagandized idiots who believe everything they're told. The bugs aren't the real enemy, fascism is. The satire is so subtle that even critics analyzing film missed it for years. Only through repeated analysis and Verhoeven explaining his intentions did audiences realize what they dismissed. Starship Troopers has been completely rehabilitated as misunderstood masterpiece. Modern analysis recognizes its brilliance. The satire that seemed too subtle now feels perfect. Verhoeven made anti-fascist films so effective that people thought it was pro-fascist. That's masterful filmmaking disguised as trash that audiences weren't ready to understand. Next, we have a Michael Crichton adaptation with massive stars that somehow failed to capture the novel's brilliance despite having everything.
I can't explain it, but I think we're inside an American spaceship.
5. Sphere, 1998. Barry Levinson adapted Michael Crichton's underwater psychological thriller with Dreamcast, Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, and Samuel L. Jackson as scientists investigating alien sphere at ocean bottom. Warner Brothers spent $80 million expecting blockbuster. It made only $37 million domestic, expected hit. Became forgotten failure. The film is too slow and cerebral for audiences wanting Jurassic Park-style action. From Crichton adaptation, it's psychological horror about fear manifesting reality. The underwater setting creates claustrophobic tension. The sphere grants wishes that become nightmares. The premise is compelling, but execution feels flat. Studio interference reportedly changed the ending and simplified complex themes. The novel's ambiguity about whether events happened got replaced with clearer resolution that satisfied nobody. Levinson's direction is workmanlike without visual flair. The cast seems bored despite material that should challenge them. Something went wrong in production that neutered the concept. Sphere is interesting failure because it had everything needed to succeed and still bombed. Great source material, major stars, decent budget, competent director. But the final product feels compromised and safe. Novel fans were disappointed. General audiences were confused. It's forgotten now, except as example of wasted potential. Could have been great, but settled for mediocre and paid the price. Next, we have Paul W.S. Anderson's gothic horror in space that was too disturbing for test audiences and got butchered by the studio.
That's the core of gravity drive.
4. Event Horizon, 1997. Paul W.S. Anderson made haunted house movie in space about experimental ship that traveled to Hell Dimension and returned possessed. Test audiences walked out vomiting. Paramount panicked and forced massive cuts. The lost footage showing explicit torture and violence was never archived properly. The theatrical cut bombed at box office, and Anderson's original vision remains lost forever. The gravity drive creates gateway to hell. The crew discovers what happened to the original expedition through horrific visions. Sam Neill descends into madness as the ship corrupts him. "Where we're going, we don't need eyes to see" became iconic line. The film mixes Event Horizon gothic horror with science fiction in ways mainstream audiences rejected. The cuts crippled the film's coherence. Paramount removed over 30 minutes, including the most disturbing sequences. When Anderson tried restoring director's cut years later, the footage couldn't be found. Some reports say it was destroyed. The full version Event Horizon may be lost permanently. But the compromised theatrical cut found cult audience anyway. Horror fans discovered it on home video and recognized its ambition despite studio butchering. It influenced Dead Space video game series directly. Event Horizon proved that some visions are too dark for mainstream success. But perfect for cult worship, the lost footage haunts film history as the horror film too disturbing to survive. Next, we have William Gibson's cyberpunk vision, brought to screen with Keanu Reeves carrying too much data in his brain.
Seek medical attention immediately.
Thank you.
Welcome to Newark.
3. Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. William Gibson adapted his own short story about data courier who stores information in his brain. Keanu Reeves plays Johnny carrying corporate secrets that will kill him if not downloaded soon. The cast includes Ice-T, Dolph Lundgren, Takeshi Kitano, and Henry Rollins. $26 million budget got disappointing returns. Critics destroyed it as incoherent mess with dated predictions about internet and data storage. The film predicted technology evolution incorrectly in specifics, but correctly in themes. The amounts of data mentioned are laughably small by modern standards, but the ideas about corporations controlling information, data being valuable enough to kill for, and technology overwhelming humanity were prescient. The cyberpunk aesthetic influenced The Matrix directly. I Want Room Service became meme mocking Reeves's performance. The tone shifts wildly between serious sci-fi and camp. The virtual reality sequences look dated. Studio interference cut the runtime and coherence. Gibson disowned the theatrical cut, but underneath the mess is fascinating cyberpunk vision that couldn't survive 90s filmmaking compromises. Next, we have virtual reality noir that got buried by The Matrix and disappeared despite having excellent premise. 2. The 13th Floor, 1999, a virtual reality noir mystery about man who discovers his world might be computer simulation, released the exact same year as The Matrix. It never had a chance. The $16 million budget barely made $18 million back. Critics ignored it. Audiences chose The Matrix's action over The 13th Floor's slow burn mystery and psychological thriller approach. The premise is solid. 1990s scientists create simulation of 1930s Los Angeles and discover they're also inside simulation. The twist about layered realities deserved better, but the execution feels cheap compared to the Wachowskis' vision. The mystery is telegraphed too obviously. The performances are flat. The budget limitations show in every scene. Being overshadowed by The Matrix doomed it unfairly. Released months earlier or later might have given it chance. Instead, it became footnote about timing mattering more than quality. Streaming services introduced it to viewers who appreciate its ideas despite weak execution. The buried truth about nested simulations influenced later films. The 13th Floor represents movies killed by bad timing rather than bad filmmaking. It's not great. but it's competent thriller with interesting ideas that got buried by Masterpiece exploring similar themes better. Sometimes being first doesn't matter if someone else does it bigger and better immediately after. The film deserves better than being forgotten completely. And at 1, we have Alex Proyas's noir masterpiece that premiered weeks before The Matrix and got completely overshadowed despite being equally brilliant. 1, Dark City, 1998. Alex Proyas made noir science fiction masterpiece about man who wakes with no memory in city where it's always night and reality keeps changing. New Line Cinema forced Proyas to add opening narration, spoiling the major twist. Marketing gave away too much. Released weeks before The Matrix with similar themes about reality being fake, the $27 million budget barely broke even. Nobody saw it theatrically. The film is visually stunning with practical effects and miniatures creating unique dystopian cityscape. The strangers are terrifying villains manipulating reality and human memories. Rufus Sewell, Kiefer Sutherland, Jennifer Connelly, and William Hurt deliver excellent performances. The mystery unfolds beautifully despite studio-mandated spoilers. The themes about identity, memory, and free will are profound. Roger Ebert championed it relentlessly, calling it one of the year's best films. The director's cut, released years later, removed the narration and restored Proyas's vision. Suddenly, the film worked perfectly. Critical reevaluation recognized what audiences missed. Dark City influenced The Matrix, Inception, and countless films about false reality. The film was too dark and weird for mainstream 90s audiences. The noir aesthetic and deliberate pacing didn't match blockbuster expectations. Being released right before The Matrix meant similar themes got overshadowed by bigger budget and better marketing, but Dark City is equally brilliant in different ways. It's now considered underrated masterpiece that deserved The Matrix's success. Proyas created a unique vision that couldn't find audience when it mattered most. The cult following recognizes its genius. Dark City is the quintessential 90s sci-fi disaster that became masterpiece through home video discovery and critical rehabilitation. It deserved better. In 1998, at least history corrected that injustice. Which 90s disaster shocked you most? Which failure became your favorite film? Which one are you finally going to watch after learning it was actually great? Drop your answer in the comments below. Hit subscribe for more film history and beautiful failures, and smash that like button if you finally understand these weren't disasters, they were masterpieces the world wasn't ready for yet. Thanks for watching.